You are now entering the realm of the freaky deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality, about time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically.
I'm actually really excited to have you here for one main reason, and nothing to do with the actual show, but we have recently, nobody has reacted to them yet because they're like 2 or 3 episodes away from happening for listeners. The soundboard has gotten a bit of an update, and it's got some musical numbers on it now. And I know that sounds weird, and I tested it out on Christian. He seemed to get a decent reaction to it. So yeah, we get like a live reaction I can see. I was like, do I save these for like a subscription service or something like that and just do weird musical episodes? But don't worry, we're not going to break out in song. That doesn't
Yeah, you're the first person besides us two to hear this.
Yeah, well, your daughter heard him on the way to the fair.
Oh, I feel bad for her.
You shouldn't. She laughed. So, yeah. And this episode is tentatively named Dogman Exists with James. I should also say James is here. Welcome to the show, James.
Hello.
This is fun for me I love having guests in studio, right? But I especially love the fact that Christian thinks Dogman doesn't exist, to the extent where he's like, no, that has never happened. It's just a Bigfoot miscategory or something like that. But yeah, 100% doesn't believe. I'm like, okay, you believe a giant bear creature or whatever can be hanging out in the woods, but you don't believe that a dog creature? It's fine. Cool.
What bear creature?
Well, like it's hairy like a bear. It's got human.
Bigfoot's nothing like a bear.
Tell that to people that keep saying, hey, that's Bigfoot when it's clearly a bear.
Well, that does happen.
Turns out I was right. So welcome to the show, James.
Thank you.
What do you do? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I work for the military on a base up here in Alaska. Nothing specific or fancy. I'm just existing for the most part.
I feel that.
Used to live in Mississippi, worked at a college down there, and now I got paid more and work less, essentially, coming up here. So I'm doing my best.
Smartest move. Yeah, and I should also say that you drove, 6 hours to get here?
We probably left about 6:45 this morning and got around here at about 2.
That is wild. That is dedication.
I wasn't even awake at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be.
And you said your dad was the one that told you about the show?
Yes, because he had always listened to podcasts similar to this, and I don't know if he listens a whole lot to this. He might still be catching up on other ones. Yeah, after I told them, it's like, hey, we're going up to Alaska for a while. He's like, dude, there's a nice podcast that I've heard about, and I've seen it be posted on other stuff called The Freaky Deaky, and they're based out of Alaska pretty much. I'm like, okay, yeah. I get some local lore while I'm coming up.
Yeah, and we're actually guilty of not talking about local stuff nearly as often as we should. I feel like every other podcast in the world talks about Alaska lore, and then we're out here, we're like, well, let's talk about Bigfoot or something, you know?
We talked about Kushtaka.
Kushtaka, we're offending so many people apparently every time you say that.
Is that what it is? Kushtaka.
Kushtaka is what we've been told by people on TikTok, so take that with a grain of salt, but you know.
I mean, I think one of the people that told us that is Alaska Native, so I would go with their saying. I just kind of slip up when I say it.
Yeah, but only every single time that you say it. So
it's because when I was doing research into it, I didn't really know how to say it, so I just said it how I read it. So now it's kind of stuck, it's old brain. Things get stuck.
That's too bad.
The only few Alaska Natives that I know, I've been too scared to bring it up because I didn't want to, for one, mispronounce it, and the other one, I didn't want it to be like, don't say the Skinwalker word or don't say the Wendigo word, and they're like freak out. And I'm like,
Is it like that? Is it similar, like when you bring it up, or is it
some of the things?
I mean, it makes sense that it would be, but like I don't know. I've never heard that.
This one, it may not quite be like that, but it's hard to tell. Different cultures believe different things. Like I'll say Skinwalker all day long, but
we have all day long.
But you can't say it in certain areas.
Yeah,
people will get nervous. So. I guess everybody's got their own little cross to bear.
Yeah.
It's like a speak of the devil situation.
There
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen.
Yeah. absolutely. I've said it a bunch. I still haven't seen one, unfortunately. I've been trying to like lure one out. Like, come here, Skinwalker.
That just sounds like a Voldemort thing. He who should not be named.
Perhaps. But like a special shout out to your dad. That is awesome. That's the best news I've ever heard, I think. Christian has a lot of those stories where people tell him about listening to podcasts and stuff like that. I know 0 people listen, including my wife. So for me, it's like I need feedback constantly. And we have some really good folks in, especially like the Facebook group and stuff that are they're constantly letting us know or things that they enjoy and stuff. So it's been really...
Yeah, we have a good community of listeners. It's been very nice.
That's awesome. It was definitely word of mouth for me, which is a cool way to share stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of posting it and expecting a lot of people to say it. It was more of a personal. It's like, hey, listen to this. So I try to do that whenever someone might seem interested or even not and don't even care. I'm like, hey, listen to this. It's pretty cool.
I know you're here to talk about Dogman and stuff like that. Do you have a belief in the paranormal in general, like spirits and stuff like that? Or is it really just the cryptid variety where you're like, I think there's something out there?
I am Christian. So I do believe.
But not by faith. Yeah.
So yeah, I do believe in afterlife and angels and demons and all that.
Just makes sense, right?
It does.
It does, yeah. You hear that, Christian? Makes sense. So
It
this
makes
is going to be
sense
so fun.
that people believe in that.
8 people have tuned out already because we mentioned Christianity. And so, but now we get a chance. We're going to convert Christian to Christianity on today's episode. So buckle up. No, it's fine.
Either that or you're just going to have to change your name.
I know. I tell them that all the time. I'm like, go by Chris.
No, I hate that. I
Go
love
by
it.
C-Money. Anything, man.
See money.
I love my name. It's a fun name.
Wow. This guy, I apologize for him in advance. He can be much. I know people listen and they think he's very chill, but he's calculated.
I used to be an altar boy. Can you guys say that?
Well, I cannot,
Can't,
thankfully, but I have been to the altar boy. Does that help?
Is that a movie?
I called you a boy. That's not a race thing. It's fine. Anyway, back to what you're saying.
What were we saying?
I honestly don't remember.
Talking about paranormal.
Talking about ghosts and shit. Yes, Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah. So I believe in a ghost type of faith in that respect. I'm iffy on like a specific paranormal type haunting stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as spirits exist, I believe that. So like I can see how it translates over pretty easily, though I don't know the specifics. Cryptids and bump in the night type stuff, physical things, or what some would think is physical. I was also iffy. Everyone grows up with hearing about Bigfoot. So it's like, that's just common. If you didn't hear about Bigfoot, I don't know where you were living.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You at least have that seed in your mind already. But besides that one, I never really thought about cryptids a whole lot until this one day. And I'm like, that's different. And it was weird. And I don't think it would fit the Bigfoot description. So how many other things are like you hearing and dismissing, but are actually a thing?
Exactly.
That's what I think now. Now I'm pretty much, I saw it. I feel like I was in a good head standing when I saw it.
Yeah.
So I'm all in.
Not something you could just mistake for something else.
That's my thought. Yeah.
Well, there's so many cryptids in this world that 1 or 2 of them have to be correct.
I know, but see, that's the thing is once you realize that 1 or 2 of them are correct, it almost, you open it up, you're like, well, I guess maybe the other things are correct too, or maybe at least a handful of them, like some of the popular ones. Mothman, we just touched on recently. Mothman, come on.
I don't think, there may be an existence of something that we call Mothman, but I don't think it's quite what has been explained in, say, the movie or the book. Maybe there's something else out there that we just identify. I always tell Scott that sometimes the things we identify may not quite look like what we think they look like because our interpretations kind of get put on there. Our brain can do that for us, but
Anyway,
that's some of the music.
Yeah, just a touch.
Yeah, but a lot of people have experiences, and if they're having experiences, something's going on. It's just a question of how can we figure out what that is.
Yeah. It's interesting. I did hear the Mothman episode and I enjoyed that. I think both y'all maybe watched the movie and had read the book. And I did for the first time last year. And I read the book first, of course. I didn't know they actually made a movie on it and I watched it. I was like, it's weird that something like that exists and everyone, exists and everyone says it and like believes in it and says this type of tale. And then the way they portrayed it in the movie, that could kind of be a hallucination, but like also affecting people even when they have no reason to think about it or know anything about it, it still affected people, and they would still give a Mothman description, whether they knew anything about it.
Have you had a chance to watch, what was that show, Unsolved Mysteries? Is that what it was? They, in the newest season that, they have a Mothman episode with, and for me, I was someone, like a lot of people that heard Mothman, you heard that one story and you're like, well, maybe, I don't know what the hell that was, but watching that episode and seeing a bunch of people's stories about it, like it kind of like made me really curious about it. I'm like, damn, we know nothing about this cryptid. So
it seems like a New England area cryptid, or at least like a northeastern thing. So it's, you don't really think about it being anywhere else. And then I think what y'all said, maybe a story from Russia. Is that right?
I think there were some
I know
stories.
there's one in Alaska.
Yeah,
for
Russia,
sure.
because of the Chernobyl. It was seen at Chernobyl.
Yeah, that one kind of sparked us, like, man, maybe they are somewhere like everywhere, and just no one talks about it or puts two and two together.
I know within the last 10 years, there were a bunch of sightings in Chicago or around Chicago, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But I love the movie. I like the story of it. I'm not 100% a believer, but
clearly
it's a great movie. I'd rewatched it for that episode, and I forgot how good it was in a lot of ways, how creepy and stuff it.
Yeah.
It reminds me, the way the encounters happen in the movie reminds me a lot of another movie, which is supposed to be based on a true story. But I don't remember what it is. Maybe An Encounter of the Fifth Kind? Or
is it Fourth Kind?
Fourth Kind. Yeah, it was kind of like that, where it was something as simple as seeing an owl, but then stuff just went off the walls and really weird and bad things happened.
Like Scream Memory type stuff.
Yeah.
And owls have like such a long tradition, you know, because I'm a history nerd. So they've been around and been scary to people since the beginning of recorded history. Obviously, prior to that, even.
Yeah. I mean, no matter where you are, if it's a big enough owl, it's going to look like a cloaked figure, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of them are big.
And they got the yellow eyes most of the time, too, which is creepy.
And then they spin their head around like a demon.
It's all fitting together. Well, it turns out owls were, all
I just
along.
convinced myself right there.
Wow.
There you go.
Did it. Let's talk a little bit about this Dogman encounter. You just kind of lead us into it. You said it happened in Mississippi, right?
Yes.
How old were you?
It was only like a couple years ago. So I was,
really?
I guess 23. Yeah. It was after my birthday, 23.
Yeah.
So for this last spin up we had for our mission, we had our normal AT a little early, and we had an extra one because we were like, oh, got new news. We're doing a different mission now. Here's more work to train on. So to preface that, I was Mississippi National Guard, M-Day, meaning I only work traditionally if nothing's happening. I do a weekend out of the month and then 2 weeks in the summer for big training. We had the update of a mission coming up, so we did our 2 weeks, and we're like, hey, this is what you'll be doing, and it's not something you're used to, so train again over something completely different. So we had one a little later in the summer, and in Mississippi, deer and like wildlife just start coming out early when it's hot, but when it starts cooling off, they'd like to come out as well. But we had this training come up, and I was at work all day because I just couldn't get off. It was busy since it was starting to rev up with classes again because I work at a college. So I worked the full shift and then had to drive 3 or so hours to my unit for that night just to stay there and wake up there that morning. So it was already dark at this time, and I was starting to head down a highway that connects pretty much right behind my house to a mile away from the unit that I go to in Mississippi. And it's an old highway, so it's the Natchez Trace, which runs pretty much perfectly parallel to an old Natchez Indian.
I've heard of the place before.
Yeah, like a trade route and a common route for them. So the Native Americans had walked it so much, they like dug. It's just so much foot traffic that they dug a trench going through the forest, so you could clearly see it. And without trying to tear that up a whole lot, they kind of paralleled it with an actual highway that is not heavily traveled, and it's a slow pace. It's not like a 4-lane or anything. It's just road right beside each other, 2-lane, just going back and forth. The speed limit's only like 50, so for a highway, it's pretty slow. I go that route because I don't like interstates or traffic or I don't trust people. And so I can go at my own pace down the slow road and listen to podcasts the entire way.
Good call. Good call.
So I was leaving my house for about maybe 10 miles down the road, and I was going slow, or I wasn't really going slow. I was going the limit, but I was like being conscious and like looking out for wildlife and deer on the road, because they'll just hop out of nowhere. I was just going down the road and I saw pack of deer, it's like nothing of it. And I was like, okay, they're definitely out tonight. Slow it down. I got past them a little bit later. It's like a pack of like 6 deer on the right side of this trace, of the Natchez Trace. And a lot on the trace. It's sometimes open field or just trees, straight level ground. But toward my house, it's kind of the same as like the natural native trail is. It's kind of dug into hills. So there's the 2-lane road, and then like, let's say a 10-meter slope, like shoulder up into the tree line.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And they were in like a short ditch before that. So a lot of the deer were like right there, and I could see them. I could see all their eyes glow on the right side. And they were looking at me, and I was like, man, y'all look nervous. One of y'all is just going to bolt out in front of me, and I'm going to have to slam on the brakes. And as I was looking at them, all of their eyes shifted, so like at one time, to the other side of the road. So like if they were on the right, it shifted directly perpendicular to the left side of the highway. And what I saw at that point was, so a little bit more, I did not have a new vehicle, and the headlights were very poor.
Yeah.
So I could not see very far. If I was looking at the deer, all I could see was eye shine. And I saw all their eyes like look to the left. So when I looked over there, all I saw was eye shine for now. But what it was like 2 huge whitish yellow eyes, just like looking dead at my vehicle or at me. It might have been for the deer at first, and it probably was, but now it's just like looking dead at me. And it's like pacing from the highway to the top of the tree line and back down that slope, which again is like 10 meters. So it's, and it paced a few times, and I was driving toward it in a vehicle. So it was booking it. It had some leg gait to it. And all I saw was like eyes just pretty much staying parallel to the ground, the marching surface. So wherever the slope went, it was staying there. It never like turned around or looked back at the deer. Like just from the tree line to the road, I could see it pacing back and forth. And this one's very short story, just because I was driving and I didn't. There's only so much that can happen in a story and during drive. But I was getting to it, and even before this, I'm going to come back to it. But even before this part, I don't know if it was because I was nervous to do a training that I wasn't used to, or if I was nervous because I knew there were lots of animals on the road. But I felt nervous and anxious starting to come up, and I was like, I just feel weird. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to try to go and push through it. And I don't know, you just kind of get that sixth sense sometimes. And I got to this, and I didn't know what to think. I was kind of dumbstruck because I didn't know what I was looking at first. And then I finally got close enough for my very poor headlights to hit it. And what I saw was, just in this moment, was a huge, humongous white dog. And when I say huge, I'm like, it was bigger than the deer. If you take the stand-up height of like a cow, maybe a little bit smaller than a cow.
That's still pretty big, yeah.
It was massive, and it was a dog. I could clearly see that it's just a white dog. If it wasn't white, it was like a light gray or something. I'm like, that's either someone's failed experiment. No, I really wasn't thinking anything. But obviously the first thing was like, I don't think we have wolves in Mississippi.
I was going to ask. I don't think there are any there anymore.
No, I have heard that there like used to be, and I've heard we have like the occasional panther or something sighting. But wolves I haven't heard about really. And when I got to look at this, it moved its head from looking directly at me to pretty much just being focused on the tree line at this point. So it looked like as it was pacing, I got close enough. It felt maybe I was too close. It's on its last pace, and it's going to go into the woods at this point. And I was dumbstruck. I didn't know what to think. I completely forgot about the deer. I was steadily moving. I didn't slam on the brakes or say any expletives or something. It was like I was just looking at it. And what it had was, besides just being a massive canine form, its head looked like a canine or a wolf, I guess. I couldn't specifically see a tail on it. I wasn't really looking. I was just dumbstruck by the rest of it. I didn't see a tail. But what I did see was like when it profiled me, so like went broadside, and I could see its entire side. It had kind of what I would think is the hindquarters of a dog, and its front legs were straight, I guess still like a dog's, but you could see so much definition in its muscle, like its muscular structure, that if you can see like a roided out like pit bull or something, or just one of those massive like Angus bulls, like an actual cow, you could see like that much definition in its muscles. And its muscles, all of them didn't look like a dog's muscular system, because its arms had, I guess, biceps and forceps for one thing, but the grass was also tall, so I didn't, while it was walking on all fours, I didn't see it pick its hands up or anything, so I couldn't see what its front paws looked like while it was walking on all fours. So I was just like, it's a weird looking dog.
Yeah.
But its rib cage, if you look at like a dog's profile, they kind of got like a round and pronounced chest cavity rib cage, and then it tapers off, and especially for specifically faster dogs, it tapers off into a small stomach area.
Yeah, like a greyhound.
Yeah, exactly. You can see it be like that kind of streamline. This one wasn't like that. This one was chest and straight, like it actually had an abdomen, like, and its muscles. If you see maybe specifically swimmers or something that have the muscles where they're
like the sides and stuff,
sides right there, and you could see the muscles like between the ribs. That's what it looked like on a canine form, which was wild, because at this point when I had light on it, I never saw it facing me, so I only saw the profile, so I couldn't exactly see if it had two nipples or something. I don't know. But
would have been a fun detail, though, right?
It would have.
Yeah, this thing got two nipples.
I'll definitely put it in my notes. That's not normal. It looked like it had a human's chest cavity and ribs and abdomen going down, and like shoulders and arms for the most part. It's up on all fours with the canine back hindquarters.
But you said it had biceps and triceps, which...
I mean, yeah, I'm not a biologist or anything, so...
But that sounds more human-like than dog-like.
Yeah.
It does. And I was still moving forward. Like, I kind of got this in just a split second, but that's what I was looking at. When I just saw all the definition, I was just like looking it all over as fast as I can. And it didn't look like it had, I don't know. I only call them like backwards knees on dogs, where the way they would pick up their front paws or whatever and walk their certain way, it just kind of looked like a human elbow instead.
Right.
I was still just constantly driving past it, and at this point I was kind of it was directly out my side, my driver's side window, and I was driving past, still dumbstruck, never slowed down, never looked at the deer again, and I was looking behind me. It finally actually got to the tree line, because it was not going to be pacing anymore. It got to the tree line, and it raised up and grabbed a tree, like I don't know, probably like 8-inch round tree, with a hand, like stringy finger, creepy fingers. It just like grabbed it, helped itself up, and continued to like take a step in. I couldn't see it. I was too far ahead of me, and it was too far behind me and dark. I definitely couldn't see it at this point.
So at that point, though, you saw a hand, not a paw.
I saw a hand grab a tree.
Yeah.
And
something
only
paws
walk
aren't known for doing. Paws can't grab trees. The whole thumb bit. Yeah, it's a fun.
Yeah, not well.
Fun accessory. Yeah.
So that was the extent of it, and I didn't know what to think. I didn't think anything. I was like, "That's weird. That's uncommon."
Yeah.
And I just kind of like got straight again. I was just paused my music and kind of started thinking to myself. I was like,
am I going insane?
Yeah, should I just like quit right now while I'm ahead, kind of? But the only thing I really did is text my dad. And I was like, and as best as I could, driving on an animal infested road at night in Mississippi.
Some poor choices there, maybe, but it's fine. Yeah.
You can only do so much when you're shocked.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I texted my dad, like, to the best of my abilities, describe what I saw. And my dad was, or is, he would say he still is, a Marine in the 90s. So in my mind, which is kind of what got me into the military as well, is like, he doesn't get scared. You can't scare him. He is a Marine.
Right.
Seen combat, like all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So
Marines are different than
They're
everybody else.
for sure. Yeah.
way tougher.
yeah, they were. Now some of them are weird, but we won't get into it.
That happens. Yeah.
That's the normal rivalry.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I texted him, and he had like one added question. It was like, did you see a tail? What color was its eyes? I told him that. The very next thing he said was like, hey dude, you need to get out of there. Like, don't stop, get out of there as fast as possible. Cool. I didn't plan on stopping, but now I'm definitely not going to. My dad told me not to.
Yeah.
Your dad, the Marine, told you not
my
to.
dad,
Yeah,
the
that
Marine,
is-
sounded spooked, and I'm gonna take his advice.
Dude, it's wild that you said it was white, right? Or like light gray or something like that.
Yeah, as
I haven't heard too
best
many
as I
of those.
could in the headlights.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Dogman before this?
I mean, I've heard of the werewolf. I don't know if I've specifically heard of Dogman.
It's like the same. It's the same thing, except for what the lycanthropy part, where you like transition into. I don't know. I'm always like, why just not call it a werewolf? It's a werewolf.
What if
As much as
nobody ever transitioned? They just saw this thing and assumed because it was somewhat human-like hundreds of years ago. They just assumed that
That is a
hu-
dog.
a
man.
human
human?
had transformed into a
It's-
wolf.
It's a dog, man.
Yeah. So in that case, maybe it's always been a dog man
Wow.
and not a werewolf.
Look at us figuring it out.
There you go.
Good times.
Yeah, it's pretty sad that I'm the one that had to figure it out, huh?
Well, someone's got to pull this ship, you know?
That just means we're slowly getting him. He's
Mhm.
believing. He's beginning to believe.
Yeah, we're just leading it out like, oh, what could this be, Christian? Please tell me.
That was pretty much as far as if I've heard it, I didn't associate it like at all. Nothing clicked. But I told my dad, and he was like, "Do it so and so in this," and he actually directed me to a episode of the Confessionals. Actually, it's like, "Hey, listen to this episode. I heard it whenever he did. Does it sound anything like that?" And I listened to it. I'm like, dude, it sounds. I almost described it to a T of what that
Oh, really?
speaker had described. And it's obviously like, I do listen to the Confessionals. I try to. I am by no means listen to every episode.
Yeah.
So I hadn't listened to that one beforehand. And two separate occurrences. I think that one might have been in Tennessee or Michigan. I don't know. And this one was in, kind of northern Mississippi, but not very close to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Down this random Native American highway in my backyard, and it was described almost to a T as that same as his encounter. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like it was that. It's like,
Yeah.
if he saw that, and I think that's what I saw as well.
So you've obviously talked to your dad about this a lot since it happened, I imagine.
Yes.
But what does he think?
Essentially the same thing. He believes it is that. We wouldn't necessarily know of a thing obviously accurately, because you can never be sure of like what its origin might be. But as far as like a description of what people are seeing, I think it's a dog man and a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot type creature as well.
Yeah.
Like for that drive to the base that night, I texted my dad. He said, "Get out." I'm like, "Cool, I will." And I drove there, and nothing else happened.
Yeah.
Like it was normal drive. I got there pretty late. I got bedded down, and I had the AT, which was the full 2 weeks training. Nothing happened during that. I hardly said anything about my encounter because I was still dumbstruck and kind of on the secret side. And I got back home for a little bit, and nothing happened until later, which we can talk about. But
No, you said when you got to where you're going, you pretty much went straight to bed.
pretty much, yeah.
Was it racing through your mind the whole time, or did you have difficulty sleeping, or did you dream about it? Anything crazy happen like immediately after that, or you just try to forget it type situation?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I tried to forget it, because those types of things were always in my mind. And telling it to Daddy and knowing that he responded in the way he did, I tried to recant as much memory as I could.
Yeah.
And retain that. It did race through my mind a little bit, but I try to switch a certain switch off whenever I try to do military stuff. So I'm like, all right, forget everything. You need to go to sleep because it's going to really suck in the morning if you don't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and I did. And for the most part, I tried to not think about it through the AT, which is the annual training. And nothing felt like it happened. And if it did, I was deep in training to not observe it or acknowledge it. So yeah, immediately afterwards, it felt fine.
Vastly different reactions. Christian would have a never-ending string of text messages from me being like, Christian, what the fuck? What the fuck was this? Through the night, really. Maybe into the morning, depending on how I feel about it. Yeah, I wish I had that ability to just turn things off. Like, no, it's time.
I think in different situations, you'd have to have that ability, like doing military stuff.
Mhm.
You really do have
Yeah,
to
it definitely makes sense.
shut things off. And I think that's what people dealing with in the military or working with the military have to do in general anyway to get through their days, is they have to learn how to compartmentalize things so that they can do the important stuff.
And sometimes that gets me in trouble when I don't do military stuff and I try to talk to people and I'm like dead faced. I'm like, I'm sorry. I absolutely love everything you're saying and am acknowledging, but it might not look like I'm acknowledging, and I'm sorry.
One of the things it was interesting because you, like when you reached out to your dad at first, and I would say, this is a smart thing to do if anybody ever has experiences like this. It's not, you reached out to your dad, explained what happened. So that way your memory is kind of held in that moment a little bit better. Like if you don't have somebody to talk to, you should definitely take notes, write down what you saw, experienced, because
pull your camera out, record yourself saying it.
But we already know a lot of people aren't going to pull their cameras out, or if they do, there's, it's like trying to take a picture of the moon with your iPhone. Looks really big until you get it on your iPhone, and then it looks horrible.
I don't know what that has to do with people talking to a camera, recanting
No, I'm
a
just
memory,
saying,
but all
because
right.
most people don't have cameras or don't take good pictures in those moments for whatever
no, I'm
reason.
talking about recording your own experience with your camera bag. This is what I just saw.
Oh, I totally got you
I
wrong.
was like, where the hell are you going with this, man?
But either
It's
way,
wild.
you kind of kept that memory from that moment. And a lot of people, I think, forget. Like I always tell Scott, our memories are really fallible.
That's horrible.
Yeah,
Mine's horrible.
We think that they're better than they are, but they aren't. But actually expressing it or, sharing it right then in one way or another helps that moment stick a little bit better.
That was actually kind of a good analogy in a way, the camera.
Impossible. You have to sell me on this.
I know
Impossible.
it's hard, but I'm gonna try to get there.
Okay.
I'm a military police, so I'm an MP, and one of the things for like an encounter in any situation, not specifically like cryptid, but if a victim of some sort has an encounter and you take the notes from them, you want to talk to them when it's fresh in their mind, get their full story, and you want to step back for a little bit. You got them, you don't want to traumatize them anymore. You step back and then say 24 hours, 48 hours later, you ask the exact same thing you already asked them, and they'll say the story again. And it's like, if it's different, mark it down and don't lead them, but try to see if they're remembering everything correctly, or they're going to be post being shocked and remember more. So that's kind of what I try to do. I especially after this, whenever I got to where I was going to stay for that night, I did try to write it down all in my notes on my phone as descriptive as I could. And I threw that away. Like I didn't throw it away, but I
put it aside.
Yeah,
put it aside.
You got it off your chest.
Yeah, I put it aside and did my thing for a little bit, kind of learned what we were supposed to do for the training. And then I kind of came back and like sat down one night, and without looking at it, my notes, I tried to remember the entire situation again, at least once. It was like, yeah, I feel like this is what happened. I like looked at my notes. I was like, okay, I can see where I might have said this instead. Yeah, I'm trying to remember that correctly. Now I'm looking like back more. It's like what I actually look at, and I kind of edit the notes a little bit, and was like, that's what sticks. So I still have it in my phone as best I can.
Yeah,
and I try to do that for every type of encounter now, even if it's like someone else's story. I'll just write it down.
We were talking about all three of our lack of memory before this, but I think that's a general thing with humans.
Thanks, iPhone.
I mean, even before that. That's why when you go into a convenience store, there's a little measuring thing on the doorway.
Yeah, you mentioned that, but
you'll be like, he was 6 foot, but he was like 4'8", but you were so petrified you kind of enhanced.
Christian, you're making all of this up. This is all being pulled right out of your
You
ass.
have not seen the measurements on the side of the door?
I've seen that, yeah.
Because
that's
that
not
helps.
for the reason that you're saying that.
It helps people.
It's for kids that want to know how tall they are when they enter the store. Christian, obviously.
Son of a bitch. I was wrong all this time.
Yeah,
That's
obviously.
hilarious because the first time I saw that, I was coming in or out of a GameStop
Yep.
and I saw it on the door. I'm like, dang, you really need to be a certain height to get an M-rated game now.
Stand by the door. Yeah.
It's like, you're not tall enough. Sir, I'm 43. It's like, nope, not tall enough.
Yeah.
That's too bad for you. Yeah.
Well, like I worked at a Circle K many years ago when I was like 19 or 20, and I got robbed. And all I remember was a guy's hand in his sweatshirt like it was a gun. I don't remember what he looked like. I don't remember how tall he was. I wasn't totally terrified because it wasn't an out of control situation.
Yeah.
But I was scared enough to where
Your brain was just like shutting down.
I was
Anyway,
no help
yeah.
to the cops when they showed up.
Yeah, that same situation happened to me in Vegas, and they shoved me in the back of the police car and drove me around, my knees like to the back of that thing. Like, yeah, that looks like it could have been him. Yeah, but same situation. I was like, they're like, how positive are you of this person? I'm like, I don't know, 50%. Is that good enough to lock up this brown guy? I don't want to do that. Let's. But it turned out to be him.
I think sometimes that's why it's so hard for like paranormal things, cryptids, because just the way. I mean, you were obviously pretty shocked when you saw this.
I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to think.
Yeah. It's probably a good thing you were driving because part of your subconscious was focused on that in a way. So maybe it would have been even like scarier.
Yeah, if I wasn't driving, I might have just frozen still. And like, then if it was really bad, something bad could have happened.
Right.
Could you estimate roughly? I mean, I know you said it was huge, right? But if this thing were to stand up on two legs, could you estimate how tall you think it would have been?
It would be thrown off from my perspective a little bit because I kind of saw it stand up. But again, it was on like a 10-meter gradient type of thing.
Yeah.
I would think at full stretch without putting its arms up, it would probably be around 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
But maybe a little bit shorter because again, its hind legs had like the backwards dog knees.
Yeah.
So that crunched it down a little bit. But that's what I would think. But it would absolutely dunk on you if you went up against.
Well, I'm sure it would. Yeah.
What's funny too is if you want to try to say this is just a big dog. I mean, there's like 1 or 2 breeds in the world that are that big. And the chances of finding that breed in Mississippi out in the middle of nowhere.
It's been there all along. Wow.
Because those are special breeds that were produced by us.
Yeah.
For specific purposes. You're not going to find what is typically a purebred dog like that's that expensive running around with the deer, scaring the crap out of people driving by. But also, one of the things in the story that really, the way the deer took their eyes off you to look at this thing.
Yeah, what's the
which
real
is pretty
threat?
fascinating because you said it was basically all the deer at the same time, which is not something you always see with, maybe hunters see it from time to time.
That tells me like a loud stick branch or something like snap or something like that to get all their attention simultaneously.
Well, also they could probably see whatever it was.
Smell it, maybe. We don't know for sure.
Because
probably a little bit of everything. And also, like, my car was just barreling down the road. So I might have got all their attention, which might have threw off the dog's game or something, which got the deer's attention. A lot of things could have happened.
Yeah, whatever this was might have been out there waiting for dinner, being all quiet. And then when you come, all of a sudden the deer are on high alert. And then they notice something else that's actually a predator and not the cars they're used to seeing in this day and age.
That's almost exactly how I thought the situation might have went down with me. Because when I hear dogman experiences now, they seem hyper aggressive. Like it's barreling towards someone.
Yeah.
And it's weird that mine just kind of like dipped as soon as I got there.
Yeah.
It almost felt like it was already stalking the deer for the get-go, and I disturbed it, and it wasn't mad at me because it still has an opportunity to get like a couple of the deer.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's going to be quiet and just kind of slink back into the woods real quick.
Wait for you to get by.
Yeah. So it's like not going to attack me because I don't know what it knows, but it might know that it's just going to disturb my metal vehicle, and it could still get a deer if it didn't do that.
Could be.
I mean, it's kind of fascinating because if you look at a lot of the myth and lore from way back, they almost all different parts of the world have stories of something we might call Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
And some pretty wild ones, you know?
Yeah. And then nowadays, modern age, sometimes when you hear the stories, they're running with the car going really fast, which is nuts.
I've heard some terrifying Dogman stories. What percentage of stories that you hear either on podcasts or wherever do you think are completely fabricated? Like, has there been a story that you've heard about this thing where you're like, damn, that seems unbelievable?
Yes and no. I don't know. People's behavior is different. So someone might have traumatized them, and they're like, don't want to talk about it. And when you finally get it out of them, it's kind of like, take and give. Some people are all for it. And if they actually have an experience, they might be too excited to say it, which makes it sound fabricated.
Yeah.
And then some people don't know what's going on and want views. And I don't know how they would do it. I don't know if they'd research a legit story or make something up, but it's hard. I don't know. It's hard.
I've heard some absolutely bonkers Dogman stories where I'm like, there's a part of me that is like, I really want to believe that, but there's also a part where I'm like, I just don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe someone is just like, hey, I'm going to get on this show by telling some weird bullshit. I don't know. I like to get other people that at least believe in this stuff. Be like, what percentage you think is just completely fabricated? Because like on the opposite side, half the stories. Who am I saying? 99% of the stories we have, you're just like, yep, made it up. Oh, it was in the brain.
I never say made it up.
Well, yeah, very creative with your terms for it. Sure, the meaning remains.
I won't say never, but generally I don't believe, like I believe people experience things. It's just a question of what that experience actually is.
Is it their brain? Is that the question?
A lot of times I'm going to say a lot of the things we talk about, or a good portion of them are part of the process of the brain, how it works.
Okay.
That doesn't mean everything, or that doesn't mean the brain isn't seeing something but processing it, or when we actually think about what we saw, we might think about it differently than what it really was. It's like people that run into motorcycles never see the motorcycles, even though they see the cars all around them. It's because your brain's trained to see the cars. It's not necessarily trained to see the motorcycles. So there's a blind spot there.
My brain is specifically trained to only see bumper stickers that say "Watch for motorcycles." That's it. Not to actually see motorcycles.
That's
but
why
to
they
pick
put those bumper stickers there, so you will watch for them.
But they distract me from the motorcycles.
Do they, though?
Then I'm doing nothing but hitting motorcyclists the entire time I'm driving. It's wild.
We need to have a different discussion.
Absolutely wild.
Have you had other experience? Because I'm kind of Scott's talked to you about this. Scott likes, and I kind of like to come in a little bit blind. Have you had other experiences similar to this?
Yes, kind of. And it did happen after this one, which was the first one. By the way, I like, before I get into it, I like how I'm going to play like the devil's advocate, but like mediator between y'all both, because it's fun having different viewpoints.
Yeah.
Again, I understand the brain making stuff up type of thing. And it makes me think of like the angels in like the Genesis or anywhere in the Bible, how when you learn about them later, angels are apparently like terrifying looking.
We've got some pretty wild descriptions in there.
Yeah, just like awesome beings of some sort. But when they're portrayed, it's a person, a female or a male, or
something we understand
with wings. It's like, it probably, and at the same time, the angels would probably have that power to manifest however you would want them to see. And they, like, their usual first statement is, if they appear to a human, is like,
do not be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Don't be alarmed. And you calm down, and then you might kind of see it how you want to see it, which is, it's just kind of like your brain coping with it.
Yeah.
And a similar story, which was creepier, but it had to do with like, not the Hat Man specifically, but like shadow figures. I've heard one of them was like a sleep paralysis demon. I'm going to go with that. I heard a story, and I don't know, and it might have been here, but the person didn't see a shadow figure or a Hat Man or something creepy. He saw like a Disney figure instead. It was like, maybe that was just the way his brain could cope with seeing something so incredibly different.
I think it might have been Confessionals.
It might have been.
But I feel like I've heard that story, and I'm placing it in 3 different locations right now. So I want to say it was the Confessionals. But yeah. absolutely wild.
Yeah. So
Was it Barney? Not from someone from Flintstones. Fred? Not Barney. Fred.
Dino.
Yeah, Fred Flintstone. maybe?
Not Dino. Yeah.
Fred or
It
It might have
Barney?
been. Yeah.
Yeah. I think someone had a Fred Flintstone encounter, which didn't think I'd ever say that sentence. Sorry, but yeah,
So
Encounter.
if that's happening, let me just pose this theory.
aliens.
And we're seeing Dogman, in some cases Bigfoot. What are we really seeing that our brain has to tone it down to be like,
Government psyops. They're just testing shit on us constantly.
yeah,
If you send in the hat man, okay, here we
that's
go.
easy to say, but if you know the government of any society, they're never quite as
They're not very
efficient
organized, yeah.
as we like to make them out to be. No matter what part of history you go to, they're usually just a bunch of bumbling idiots, just like the rest
Hey,
of
who
us,
amongst us?
just
You know,
with power.
yeah, it's not fun.
We lose so many keys on a daily basis. Right.
Yeah, I believe it. I do too. Hey, look, just like us. Yeah.
Yeah, to like go off that, maybe it's just all of us are kind of a spirit in some, depending on like what you subscribe to, but have a spirit. Maybe that's just their open spirit doing whatever they're trying to accomplish, and we just interpret it as, I don't know, the last thought that could stick to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I always tell Scott is that he and other people like him are probably able, they have a filter or they don't have a filter where they're able to see a part of the world maybe someone like me can't, and maybe that's why I tend to not have too many experiences is I have a filter that blocks some of that. And there's superior brain capacity.
You could just say what it is. Christian and I have superior brain capacity.
Oh, I thought you were saying I had superior brain capacity.
I would never say that,
I
Christian.
know.
How
I
dare
was
you.
really confused and kind of flattered there for a minute.
I took it away.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Scott.
You're welcome.
I cry after each episode because
That's
Scott,
what I hear. Yeah. I leave him alone in here for 15 minutes to just recoup, gather his belongings, and get out.
There's another thing that, especially stories kind of like this, remind me of, and I believe the name of this. I guess it's an ancient god
Here we
named
go.
Cernunnos, that tends to be like a forest spirit,
Mm.
and sometimes resembles a deer, including having antlers. It's more of an English, Scottish, Irish, maybe parts of the mainland of Europe.
Say the name again.
Cernunnos, if I remember.
Is it a single word or is it Sir Nunos?
It's a single word spelled.
Wow,
It's
okay.
spelled really strangely, like with CER.
Got you. I had to question it because when you said like England and Scotland, I'm like, oh, maybe it was.
No,
Sir.
it wasn't a sir.
Yeah.
It's
that kind
it's
of-
Nunos, but he's been knighted.
There
Yeah,
you go.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The queen.
Exactly.
He's done things for the queen.
Hell yeah.
Got knighted. But sometimes I wonder if things like, say, a Dogman or a Bigfoot or things like that maybe are sometimes aggressive and scary,
Hmm.
but really don't cause too much drama in the world.
Wow.
Unless you run into one, which, if you're going to be in their territory, they might cause you some drama and stress,
Checks out.
but they watch over the wildlife. And in this case, like this thing may have been hunting the deer or watching over.
Watching. Oh, okay. Now we're getting into some weird territory. I don't think this was like a guardian spirit for the
Not
deer.
necessarily a guardian spirit, but something that keeps the balance in nature.
So it's a fun correlation when you remember that it's along a Native American
Right.
Mhm.
highway.
Yeah.
And they always have their stories of skinwalkers.
Mhm.
They're shamans that decide to, just accept the devil's bargain and
Yeah.
become a skinwalker to either battle or protect or whatever
Yeah.
their mission might be.
That's true.
So-
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't a dogman at all. Maybe it was a skinwalker.
I have heard of that region of the country before through research for the podcast. So I'm sure we're going to
Mississippi through
No.
research for the podcast.
no
Oh
the
my
name,
God.
like the name of the highway.
Our school systems are failing us.
I couldn't spell in Mississippi without thinking hard about it after all these
No,
years.
it was made into a song when I was in elementary, so it had to stick with you.
When he was in elementary, that song
Yeah.
was from way before you were in elementary.
Well, when I was in elementary, I heard it. Is
Do
that
you think-
easier for you?
Yeah, okay, that's better.
Thank you. Yeah.
So there's a lot of especially anything Native American is very fascinating because some of it hasn't been tainted by stories because it's just a story from that region.
Mm.
And if you can get it, kind of, especially when we, like the old people that wrote it down like 100, 200 years ago, that's one of my favorite Bigfoot stories comes from, it was probably First Nation people because they're in Canada.
Hmm.
but it's a very old story. And it sounds just like Bigfoot, even though they didn't call it Bigfoot back then. And then we hear Native American stories all across the country. And it's pretty fantastical, some of the stuff you hear.
It is.
And even if it's not quite the way the story goes to us, I mean, it grew out of something. Someone saw something, told the story, and it had a purpose.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it's always hard to trace some of this stuff back. But some of these things have been here forever, it seems like.
It sure does.
We just don't always have it in written history.
Now, you had mentioned that this had an effect on you later on at some point.
Yes, I'm sure y'all know of the hitchhiker effect.
I know the title. I'm not really...
The way I've researched it would be if you did encounter some type of entity, similar to in some horror movies or like paranormal movies, if you have a Ouija board and someone calls a demon, it might follow a certain person home, like maybe the user of the Ouija board or whatever.
Gotcha.
It'll just follow them back to their residence and like haunt them specifically.
That's how I got haunted one time. So yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. This was weird. That's why I brought up that it was a normal drive. It was a normal AT. Nothing happened. I get back home just normal. I go back down the trace. I was vigilant this time, but I didn't see anything and nothing weird happened. And it was daylight this time. But I'm home for, say, 2 or 3 weeks. Go back to work, school, because I was in college at this point. Nothing happened. And my grandfather, so I guess this was late summer of 22. My grandfather had been really ill, and he's still alive. Luckily, he got everything fixed on him, pulled through. But he was really ill, and certain illnesses conflicted with certain medicines that would make the illness, a different illness, better. So they all conflicted, and he couldn't take anything, and he just kept getting worse and worse. So he sometimes would holler, kind of, "Hey, Bonnie," who's my grandmother, "you need to turn down the church music or something, because I'm hearing the church bells ring." And people are walking through walls, and he's hearing the choir.
Wow.
And it's he at that point might have had a foot through the door.
Yeah.
He is
getting called home at that point. You're like, oh shit,
he might have been getting called, and he's just seeing people walk through walls, hearing people talk. I got a couple creepy things with my grandmother too. I don't think it's related, but it's the same area, so I don't know. It's weird. He's feeling sick, and he's already seeing angels and hearing the choir. But me and my mother would go check on them, because we lived in the same house, and it was separated by a bedroom in the middle, and that kind of separated the two households.
Gotcha.
So we'd go check on them in the morning, because me and my mom worked at the same university, at Mississippi State University. So we would pretty much leave at the same time. I'd either go to class or go to work. She'd go to work. We'd go over there, and my grandparents' side of the house in the backyard in the back of the house have floor to ceiling windows. And I didn't really have anything to say, but we'd go in there. But the night before, I was feeling anxious again, feeling weird. I had that weird feeling that something was around, looking at you, maybe. Just how you get that feeling behind you, someone's just staring at you. But I was trying to go to sleep. My bedroom was in the back house, where we got maybe 120 yards till of kind of backyard and pasture until you hit the tree line. And we have 3 or 4 trees up beside our house, enough to make leaf cover whenever the leaves start falling.
Yeah.
And I was feeling weird, couldn't get to sleep for nothing. It was 11:30, and I heard something walking on the leaves. I'm it's just because all the lights were off, and I was trying to go to sleep, so I was super vigilant on if I heard anything.
Just hyper aware.
Yeah. So I heard something walking in the dead leaves back there. I was like, oh, that's cool. Some deer came up, or raccoon, or something. I don't know. It's cool. And then I started hearing heavy breathing, kind of not sinister, but breathing, which isn't normal to hear.
Got some weight to it, yeah.
Yeah. My first thought, well, I'm just trying to like rationalize this away. My thought was not on Dogman again, because I was still compartmentalized from that training.
Yeah.
It's like, it kind of escaped my mind. I was like, I heard breathing. I'm like, man, there's some possums right under my window being loud and creepy and weird.
Yeah, very inconsiderate possums, it turns out.
All possums are inconsiderate. Have you seen one?
They're kind of creepy looking, yeah.
They are creepy. Like unreasonably creepy. They're cute as long as they don't open their mouth.
And start hissing you?
Yeah. So I just thought it was like some weird possums doing weird possum stuff.
Yeah.
And eventually I stopped hearing stuff. I stopped feeling anxious and I just fell asleep. I could go to sleep. I didn't think anything of it because there was nothing to think about in my mind.
Yeah.
The next morning, me and my mom go to the grandparents' side of the house, check on them, make sure they're good before we go to work. I didn't bring up to my grandfather that like something weird happened because I didn't know it was something weird at first.
Yeah.
And if I did, he would like talk to me forever. He just he'll talk about everything for a very long time.
That sounds very familiar. Yeah.
It's a grandfather thing.
Could be. We'll all get that way one day.
Yeah.
I was just looking out that back floor to ceiling window. I was just looking for like the morning deer if there were any. And he was just sitting on the couch and was like, "You see anything out there?" I'm like, "No, I haven't seen any deer out in the yard for a minute. Have you seen anything, Papa?" And he's like, "No, but man, I was hurting so bad last night." And this is him talking. So I was hurting so bad, I couldn't go to sleep. And I was just sitting in that recliner. So I decided to just look out the window in hopes that I'd just fall asleep at some point. And I saw a black figure come out of the woods, like real close to the ground. I'm like, "What do you mean a black figure?" He's like, "I don't know. It wasn't a deer, but it was big, but it wasn't a boar because there was like just one of them."
Yeah.
And it's just like came like real, I don't know, crouched on the ground. It looked like it passed the house in the pond and came up to y'all's side of the house. He was like, "Did you see anything last night?" I'm like, "No, I never really looked outside." That's weird though. I still didn't tell him about what I was feeling or hearing. And I was like, "Hey, Papa, like, when were you hurting?" He said, "Probably about 11:30. I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
I just to myself was like, "Oh, that's when I was having problems too."
Yeah, man. Do you regret not looking out now, or are you glad? Like, I'm glad I didn't see what the hell that was. That
yes
sounds
and
creepy as
no.
hell.
If it was, if everything was like 100%, it'd be cool to confirm it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to stare the devil in the face.
Yeah. Might stay with you for a bit.
Yeah. So I retained that and I went to work. I just went straight to work. And as soon as I got to work and clocked in, I texted my dad.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Dad, the weirdest thing just happened." "What happened?" I said, "Well, pretty much the same description I just told you." It's like, and then I went to my grandparents' house in the morning. They said the exact same thing Papos did without me telling them. And now I'm at work.
Yeah.
He was like, "Dude, was that like last night?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "So you went to sleep last night, it happened, and you woke up and you're telling me this morning?" It's like, "Yeah, that's when it happened." I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Dude, I was dead asleep last night." This is Daddy talking now. I was dead asleep, and I don't know if it was a dream or if God just woke me up and said, "Hey, you need to pray for your son and his family over at his house." He was like, I fell asleep and I woke up just, "Hey, you need to pray for your son." I'm like, "That's weird."
Direct
Daddy.
message, no doubt. Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, "When did that happen?" He's like, "Dude, it was probably like 11:35. I was like, "Well, cool." Because it worked. Yeah. It's like, thanks. Because whatever the prayer was, you did it. You got rid of it. And I went to sleep. Papa didn't die.
Yeah. So, I mean, hearing something like that, it adds a weird spiritual element to things. Do you feel that, or do you feel that it was just kind of like hey, there's some crazy monster outside, you got to pray for your son?
No, I do feel like it was like a weird spiritual thing, because if it was like a flesh and blood, I don't think it would care. Like, I left the whole vicinity,
Yeah.
did my AT, came back and didn't see it, I wouldn't think like a flesh and blood creature would care
you
to
down.
track me if it came back.
Mhm.
I don't want to say it's just specifically like a spiritual thing
Yeah.
as well, because that's also still kind of random. Like I met a demon or spirit in the forest. It left, didn't care, and then I came back and I was like, you know what? There's that kid again.
I'm gonna go freak him out real quick. Yeah. Well, we had didn't we have a story that was similar, like that curse with that giant wolf? Do you remember that thing? Was that Romania? Where was that?
Oh, the wolf that killed the
Family, like the entire lineage pretty much going through and like wiping out this family?
I believe that was Romania.
And that was a supposedly physical thing too. I think the two could be interconnected though. Like,
What if it's
Yeah.
it's not that, like, let's step aside from like demons and stuff.
I guess if we must, Christian, what's the brain doing? Come on in.
Once you see something like that, there's a good chance you can see it again because now you're aware that,
Now you know what it looks like.
yeah, otherworldly things exist. So
Sure.
you're going to pay attention a little bit more. But also, if now all of a sudden you can experience and see things that maybe you didn't before, who's to say they can't now see you or understand that you can see them? And sometimes they just want to come check and make sure you're safe
Wow.
because
Wow.
maybe they don't want, some random person just telling everybody
Made
about
it
it.
up. You made it up. Christian, you made it up. That shit you just said right there. Pulled it right out of your ass and made it up.
You feel good about that?
I mean, I feel fine. If you're going to like do that to me when I'm saying, if you can see these things and experience these things, why can't they experience you?
Well, no, the reasoning behind them experiencing you, not like coming to like threaten or anything, but to be like, hey, you doing okay, sport? Like that's where I'm like,
that's
okay,
your
that's not happening.
that's your perception of what I was saying. They're just coming to see what the heck's going on with this person that can all of a sudden see this, paranormal realm that most people can't see.
What, they're here
especially that
to
guy,
welcome you with
Christian.
like a little cookie basket.
I'm not saying
or
they're
something.
here to welcome you. They're just trying to figure out what's going on.
You're saying they're curious.
I mean, wouldn't you be if you,
Was a half man, half wolf? I don't know, honestly.
like, if all of a sudden, let me use a really dumb analogy.
Please do. Yeah, you're exclusive for them,
All of a sudden, an ant realizes you're a human with the brain. And so, the humans realize that this one ant can realize what
Wow.
we are and not just some other part of nature just walking by, stepping on them and burning their ant hills every once in a while. I don't know if that was just me, but firecracker.
Well, you seem pretty fucked up as a kid, Christian.
Right.
Turns out that's unfortunate.
Every time I messed with the ants, eventually one would bite me. And that was like, to me, a message from maybe God saying, hey, don't be cruel.
Yeah.
But you'd go check on something like that too if you all of a sudden realize this being that never has any interaction, doesn't understand you exist, can't see you, all of a sudden can see you.
Perhaps.
You ever watch Ghost, the movie Ghost?
With Patrick Swayze?
Yeah.
No. I'm familiar of all the meme-worthy moments.
never
but
seen that
I've
movie?
never. No,
This guy disappoints me.
Dude,
There's
and
two
I was-
movies that I tell him he should watch now. The first one was They Live.
yes. And people have backed you up on that too.
Yeah,
sure.
if you're in this genre, you should see They Live.
Hmm.
Also, when we're doing a podcast in this genre, you should see Ghost. But basically, the psychic in Ghost can see all these ghosts, so the ghosts come to her because they realize it to communicate with her so they can talk to the loved
Okay,
ones.
you could have just said The Sixth Sense because I would have been like, yeah, I've seen that.
The Sixth Sense came later, and that's a little different. What I'm saying is, once you notice something, like the reason you might have shadow people tormenting your life.
Number one, I don't have shadow people tormenting my life.
Man.
I've seen shadow people. There's a difference. If I had them tormenting my life, I would think that maybe I should be locked up
I
somewhere.
have never seen anything like this. But if I did, I bet you I'd see it again.
No, because you've seen the demon or the devil come out of your floor when
That
you were
one
a kid.
that was in my mind, though.
You've jumped 25 miles in the sky or something when you were a kid. You did a lot of weird shit as a kid, Christian. Then now you're
It was
just
the
like, "It's all
70s, man.
fake."
And
That's what they did back then.
And you saw your friend's doppelganger?
That is true. Yeah.
True. Oh, you remember that story?
I do.
I was like, wait.
Yeah. Exactly. Weird.
I'm glad you brought the ant analogy back around because I was struggling to figure out how to mediate that one.
I do that
gives-
sometimes.
That gives me a nice little. I got to throw this in there. I wanted to decide against it.
Get to the point.
Yeah, that one was.
The point, the damn point. Christian, please get to the point.
Beautiful.
Name call too.
Actually,
I
I was like into the. I'm like, this is not going to work. How do I save this?
I was gonna hit that button like 2 seconds in that thing. I'm like, really, we're going ants now? Okay.
Yeah, it was bad. I'm sorry, but
That's
I think
fine.
most people understood what I was trying to say. So this thing,
Hmm.
and before I butcher everything else by going back into this, one thing
Oh,
that you
God.
said about your grandfather in this story that was fascinating is when he was describing this black shadowy thing that he saw. Wasn't a boar, or anything, or a deer. Because one thing, like we talk, especially when our grandparents kind of get older, sometimes we're like, they don't know what they're talking about. But on stuff like this, they do.
Yeah.
Your grandfather's lived in this area for a long time.
Yeah.
He's seen the wildlife.
Mhm.
It's almost instinctual when certain things move out in the forest or around where they live. The way it moves, you can kind of tell what it is or what it isn't.
Sure.
And he's basically sounds like, I don't know what the hell this was. Even though he's looked through that window countless times, seen wildlife of all different sorts, seen shadows or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But this thing was like very specific in the fact that he didn't know what it was.
Just a black figure.
Yeah.
And he made it sound like it could definitely be taller than what he saw it as, but it was trying to be low.
Right.
Like, and then when I heard it, I was like, man, this thing trying to be sneaky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it didn't mess with you, but you did hear it and he saw it. And your dad
Felt
had
it, I
a
guess.
totally different
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Because your dad felt like he needed to pray doesn't mean that you're being attacked by demons. But
But it doesn't mean that God's real. So just put that
no,
there,
that's
right?
not what I'm saying.
Now, here we go.
I never say God's not real. You say that about me.
Yeah, I'm planting a seed of doubt in our listeners' minds.
Somehow we got here.
Here we are.
But either way, your dad felt like he needed to pray. So maybe it was dangerous or maybe it was just scary.
Yeah.
I believe, especially within families, there's a connection that is hard to explain. We're not at a place where science can even explain it because you can't measure this stuff, but these
Yeah.
things happen.
We don't even need science to
This
explain
isn't
it.
the
No.
first time family members have gotten a feeling about something and reached out or prayed or drove over somewhere and saved somebody's life. This stuff happens.
Mhm.
We can't argue with that one. There's plenty of stories throughout history that tell us stuff like this.
Nobody is arguing with that one.
Yeah. So
It's a spiritual connection.
it's a completely interesting story because it's coming from 3 different places and without any interaction between you guys really to coordinate the story
True.
or to accidentally suggest. Because being military police, you obviously probably have experienced people that think that they witnessed something, but it was the person that was with them that witnessed it and then started talking about it. And all of a sudden that's their memory of
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
That's why the police separate witnesses a lot of times
Mhm.
so that they can get the story without one person.
Corroborating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
So it's that's a story that'll keep me thinking about it for a while.
Now,
And so I don't have to hear any more music. I won't put any more theories out
I
there.
can push the button whenever if you're feeling antsy. That was kind of a throwback. That's fine. So are there any other details about this that you want to, we're kind of closing out a little bit now. I have one thing to close it out on for sure, but is there anything else you need to add to that?
As far as I think the Dogman experiences go, I can't think of any more. There was some weird stuff, but nothing that related really.
Yeah.
Besides like me, the way we saw it, maybe. I told my dad, so he was like, knew about it by association from my encounter, or at least this particular one. I might have just accidentally stumbled upon it when it was trying to prey on deer.
Yeah.
And if it's a purely spiritual thing or still needed like substance to live, it became physical enough in that particular moment to prey on some deer.
Yeah.
So, and I accidentally caught it during that time. Papaw's instance is weird because it's almost like Daddy knows about it from his particular viewpoint and stuff. I stumbled upon it and might also be susceptible now to it and would recognize it again, maybe why it could have been outside my window that night. Papaw, I'd never talked to him about it, so I never like suggested or planted that seed in his mind. But at the same time, he was almost on death's door. Like he had a foot into the afterlife, maybe. the one thing I can think about is he was close enough that he broke that veil and he could see the spiritual thing.
Yeah.
And that might have been why it also came out as a black figure and not a dog-looking creature.
Yeah.
Or a humanoid creature.
Very
It's
possible.
like he's already seeing, hearing angels and choirs, and he's peeking through the veil. So he might have saw that thing as soon as it exited the woods.
Yeah, oops, saw some of the dark part of it too. Nice. That's not the fun stuff. Give me the church bells.
What's fascinating on some of this stuff is also, I forgot my point as I started to speak.
Wow. Classic.
Oh no, I remembered it now. When you hear some of these experiences like that, and this is maybe, at least with your grandfather, this is one incident, but it makes you wonder, because a lot of people see these types of things all around the world. What if this stuff's always just walking around there and we just don't see it?
Yeah.
What, you know,
I think it's possible.
that weird feeling you get is because all of a sudden it's close enough or doing something to where you can feel it, like a Bigfoot story. People get that same feeling in a Bigfoot story. Like before you saw this dog man, you got that uneasy feeling that we hear a lot. So to me, it almost sounds like there's something out there moving around, sometimes triggering our fight or flight response, or just getting our attention to where we're more aware. Who knows what's walking around us that we can't see all the time?
What if you've had a co-host on a podcast that has told you this every episode for about 200 episodes, and you're just now saying this?
I've said this stuff before. I tend to be somewhat skeptical about some things,
somewhat,
but I do believe there's things we don't see. We don't, moving around us all the time.
I absolutely love having guests on, because he has to open up a little bit more. He has to be a little more believey on things. He's very respectful of people's stories and everything like that.
Well, because I think their experiences.
No, I love it. I wish more people would come on.
I don't always have, I don't have the experiences that other people have, other than a couple weird little childhood things that could have just been dreams.
James, have you felt threatened by Christian at all during this episode?
I need a safe space.
Only slightly. Yeah,
I've heard
it's
that
in his
before.
eyes. It's in his eyes.
Damn it, the cops are going to show up again.
Yeah. So, wow. Anyway, I do want to thank you for being here. And also, we'd love to have you back on. How about 2 weeks from now after the Halloween episode? That sounds beautiful. You think you make it?
I think I could. I can probably pull the leave out.
That's the level of dedication we look for in people. I do want to close this episode out one way, and I'd like to make it as uncomfortable as I can. Christian, you don't believe in Dogman.
I do not believe in Dogman.
James, you have seen Dogman.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe Dogman's closer to Bigfoot, though.
Sure, but just to clarify, you got a good profile on this thing. Definitely canine head in nature.
Yes.
Wow, would you look at that? So, Christian, I have to end this episode by asking you: do you believe in Dogman now? Did we do it?
No. But what if there's?
What if
I'm not coming back now?
Yeah. Wow.
So now you want me to just change my beliefs?
You got to bend the knee and say, "Damn it, you're right." Which I do have that soundbite. Don't make me pull it out.
You are not Daenerys Targaryen. I do not have to bend the knee.
But you could.
You won't be Drakarian as.
You're very stubborn on this, Christian. We have a man who has just shared an encounter with his own eyes.
I struggle with the Dogman thing.
We know, but you could let go of some of that stubbornness.
What if it's interdimensional?
It would still be a dog. What do you want me to say? Dog
it might
spirit?
appear to us as a dog spirit.
Do you believe
in
dog spirits, Christian?
I believe in dogs.
Wow. This is what I deal with. Imagine 4 straight years of this shit. Do you understand? This is... Wow.
I believe you experienced something paranormal. How's that?
Man.
I don't believe this was imagination, if that makes you feel any better. I don't know what it was. It looked like a dog. Felt like a big, huge dog. I mean, not that you felt it. But if you would have felt it, you might have felt like it was a big, huge dog.
Yeah.
Type creature. But it also had hands. And
that's hands. Thank you for bringing that back.
That is so weird.
It is very weird.
That a Dogman has hands like that. Because I've heard of, I think there was even an Alaskan Dogman experience where somebody saw
Trunk Road, like a few, just 5 minutes away from here. Dogman sighting.
Yeah. So the hands thing's weird. And I don't know, just because I don't quite understand what this is, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. How's that? How's that for you?
I think I think deep down inside you believe in this shit, but I think that you love this podcast so much, you're like, we got to keep it going. I got to keep saying nothing exists.
I believe that things exist that I don't understand and can't explain, and that other people see that I don't.
And I believe
You're wrong.
He really likes this music.
Wrong. Take this chance. You're wrong.
Yeah. Because I don't have to say anything. I just have to listen. I just have to sit here and be like, take it in, Christian, you're wrong.
I'll accept the answer, and I'll make the 8-hour drive again in 2 weeks to
Look
be
at
better.
that. Look at that. Dedication. Thank you, James.
Just like me. I'm dedicated to my role of annoying you.
And you do it well.
Yes.
Anyway, I think we're going to get out of here. And I'm just now realizing that we have not gotten into the intro music. So we'll see you on the inside of next week, which is the Halloween special. And after that, James is coming back out here because he's that dedicated. Goodbye. I realized that about 30 minutes in. I was like, I have not led into this episode to start with. I was going to do it just to annoy people with the intro.
Stalking by your window. Mothman is scratching at your door. Ghosties are walking up and down your halls at night, and the Hat Man is coming back for more. Your name is Christian, you love a can of beans, and you're the wettest blanket skeptic this world has ever seen. You're almost always wrong. It's quite an impassive streaky. This song has rambled on too long. Welcome to the freaky deaky.